I never thought betrayal could come from both directions at once. For 25 years, I believed my marriage was strong, and for 40 years, I trusted my sister with every secret I ever had. Those were the two pillars of my life, my husband and my sister. But now, when I look back, I realized the cracks had been there all along. I just didn't want to see them. It started with a text message, not even one meant for me. One evening, my husband left his phone on the counter while he went out to the garage. It buzzed with a notification, and out of habit, I glanced at the screen. The name that lit up froze me in place. It was my sister. At first, there was nothing unusual about that. They had always been friendly, laughing together at family gatherings, sometimes texting about birthdays or planning surprises. But the message itself, it wasn't the kind of thing a sister should send to another woman's husband. It read, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." My blood turned cold. I stared at those words, rereading them over and over, hoping I had misunderstood, that there was some innocent explanation. Maybe she meant to send it to a friend. Maybe it was about a concert or a dinner. But deep down, I knew. There was no innocent explanation for that kind of message. My hands shook as I placed the phone back exactly where it had been. I didn't want him to know I had seen it. Not yet. I needed to be sure. That night, I barely slept. I lay awake beside him, listening to his steady breathing, remembering all the nights he told me he was working late, all the weekends he spent running errands, all the times he seemed distracted at dinner. I replayed every conversation with my sister, every look they had shared. Suddenly, things I had dismissed as harmless seemed suspicious. The way her hand lingered on his shoulder when she passed him the salt. The way he laughed at her jokes more than mine. The excuses they made to talk privately at family gatherings. It all flooded back in a wave of nausea. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I made coffee, I asked about his schedule, I kissed him goodbye. But inside, my heart was pounding, my mind racing. As soon as he left, I called my sister. My voice was calm, too calm. I asked if she wanted to meet for lunch later that week. She agreed quickly, maybe too quickly, like she wanted to keep things casual, normal. But I could hear something in her voice, a tremor, a hesitation. It was small, but it was there. At lunch, she smiled as if nothing was wrong. She told me about work, about a new dress she had bought, about how tired she was lately. I nodded and smiled, pretending to listen, but I watched her carefully. I noticed the way she glanced at her phone every few minutes, the small smile that played on her lips when a message came through. I asked casually, "Talking to someone special?" She laughed, but the sound was too high, too forced. "No, just work stuff," she said quickly, slipping her phone back into her purse. But I knew. That night, I checked my husband's phone again. I told myself I wasn't that kind of woman, that I didn't snoop, but betrayal changes you. It forces you into corners you never thought you'd step into. I opened his messages, and there they were, dozens of texts between him and my sister. Some short and simple, some long and intimate. Things like, "Can't wait to see you again," and "I wish we had more time alone." Each word cut deeper than the last. I felt my stomach turn, my vision blur, my heart splinter into 1,000 pieces. I wanted to confront him then and there, to scream, to throw the phone at him, to call my sister and demand answers. But instead, I put the phone down and walked into the bathroom. I locked the door, sat on the edge of the tub, and let the sobs rack through me. My body shook so hard I thought I might fall apart. But when the tears finally stopped, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just broken. I was determined. I needed to know everything. Over the next week, I became an actress in my own life. I smiled when he kissed me. I laughed at his jokes. I answered my sister's calls as if nothing had changed. But behind that mask, I was watching. Every detail, every late night, every excuse. I checked his mileage, his receipts, his emails. I checked her social media, her photos, her comments. I noticed patterns. When he said he was working late, she went offline. When she said she was visiting a friend, he came home later than usual. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together, and the picture it formed was unbearable. They weren't just having an affair. They were in love. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the fact that the two people I trusted most had chosen each other over me. My husband, the man I had built a life with, and my sister, the girl I had grown up with, who had shared my secrets, my laughter, my childhood. They had both looked at me, at our history, and decided I wasn't worth their loyalty. That realization burned deeper than any lie, any kiss, any secret meeting. And yet, I kept silent, because I wasn't ready to lose them both. Not yet. The days after I found those messages felt like living in a dream where nothing made sense, yet everything was painfully clear. I went through the motions, work, errands, phone calls with friends, while inside I was unraveling. Each time my husband kissed my cheek before leaving, I fought the urge to wipe it away. Each time my sister texted me something casual, "How's your day?" or "Wanna grab lunch?" I stared at the screen, wondering how she could be so calm when she was stabbing me in the back. But I didn't confront them. Not yet. I wanted proof. Solid proof. Something undeniable. I began to pay closer attention to details I had once ignored. His shirt smelled faintly of perfume, not mine. Her lipstick shades were different lately, deeper, as if she wanted to look older, more sophisticated. He claimed to have meetings at odd hours, while she often made excuses to skip family dinners. Alone, each sign could be explained away. Together, they screamed the truth. I bought a second notebook, smaller than the first, one I could keep in my purse without him noticing. In it, I wrote everything. The time he left, the exact words he used for excuses, the moments my sister's schedule mysteriously matched his. One night, I tested them. I invited my sister over for coffee, texting her in the morning so she couldn't claim she was busy. She agreed, though her reply seemed hesitant. That evening, as we sat at the kitchen table sipping from mugs, my husband walked in from work. The moment his eyes landed on her, something flickered, shock, then quickly forced nonchalance. She looked down at her coffee too fast. I watched every detail. The way his voice went softer when he asked how she was, the way she avoided his gaze, the tension in the air thick enough to cut. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but I did. When she left, I hugged her at the door, and her body felt stiff against mine. I whispered, "Love you," the way I always did, and she whispered it back, but it rang hollow. Later that night, while he showered, I checked his phone again. Deleted texts, but I knew how to look deeper. I opened the recently deleted folder. My hands trembled as I read. Asterisk, can't wait until Sunday. Asterisk, asterisk, wish she didn't suspect anything. Asterisk, asterisk, just 5 minutes together is worth it. Asterisk. My stomach lurched. I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the phone until my knuckles went white. He emerged from the bathroom, hair damp, smiling casually, asking if I wanted to watch a movie. I forced myself to nod, sliding the phone back to its place, my face neutral while my insides burned. On Saturday, I followed him. I told him I was going shopping, then waited 10 minutes before getting in my car. He drove not toward the office, but toward the old park near the edge of town. I stayed far enough behind to be invisible. He parked near the trees, and minutes later, another car pulled up. My sister stepped out. I gripped the wheel, while rising in my throat. She wore jeans and a sweater, nothing glamorous, nothing flashy. But when he opened his door and they walked toward each other, the way their bodies leaned and said everything. They didn't kiss, not out in the open. But they didn't have to. The way they looked at each other was worse. They walked down the path together, disappearing among the trees. I couldn't move. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, staring at their empty vehicles, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might crack my ribs. When they finally returned, their steps were slower, more reluctant, as if they hated to part. She touched his arm before sliding back into her car. He watched her drive away before getting into his. I wrote it all down in my notebook, my handwriting jagged, the ink smudged by my shaking hand. Saturday. Park. Met in secret. No doubt left. That night, at dinner, I set the table as usual. He told me about paperwork at the office and new deadlines. I smiled and nodded, spooning potatoes onto his plate, playing the role of the perfect wife. But inside, I wanted to scream, to throw the dish at the wall, to force him to look at me and admit what he had done. Instead, I asked, "Do you ever see my sister much these days?" He froze for a fraction of a second, then shrugged casually. "Not really. Just at family stuff, same as you." He didn't look me in the eyes when he said it. I held his gaze until he shifted uncomfortably, then smiled sweetly and changed the subject. My heart hammered, but I felt a spark of control. He didn't know how much I already knew. The next day, I called my sister, my voice light, casual. "Want to meet for coffee again?" She hesitated before agreeing. When we sat across from each other at the cafe, I studied her face. Her smile was tight, her eyes guarded. Halfway through, I leaned forward and asked, "Is there something you want to tell me?" Her coffee cup rattled slightly in its saucer. "What do you mean?" she asked quickly. I tilted my head, pretending innocence. "You've seemed different lately. Distracted. Like something's on your mind." She forced a laugh, shaking her head. "Just work stress. You know how it is." But I saw the panic flicker in her eyes. And in that moment, I knew I had her cornered. When I got home, I wrote in my notebook, "She's lying. Both of them are lying. They think I don't know." And then I added a final line, "Soon, they'll learn I do." The breaking point came sooner than I expected. I thought I could hold on longer, gather more proof, stay quiet until I had every piece of the puzzle. But sometimes the truth doesn't wait for your timing. It erupts when you least expect it. It was a Sunday afternoon, the kind of day meant for family. My sister had come over, something we often did to keep traditions alive. We cooked together, laughed about old stories, played music in the background. From the outside, it looked like a picture of closeness. Inside, I was trembling. Every laugh felt forced, every glance between her and my husband like a dagger. At one point, I stepped out of the kitchen to grab a towel from the laundry room. As I returned, I froze. The two of them were standing close, far too close. My sister's hand brushed his arm, and his smile, God, that smile, wasn't the smile of a brother-in-law. It was the smile of a man caught in a secret. When they saw me, they both jerked back. My husband cleared his throat, pretending to look for the salt. My sister quickly stirred the pot on the stove, her cheeks flushed. I said nothing. I simply watched, my silence louder than any words. Later that day, while we sat at the table eating, my sister laughed too much at his jokes. He poured her wine before pouring mine. Every small gesture was a confession. I clenched my fork so tight the metal dug into my palm. After she left, I told him I needed some air. I walked around the block, heart pounding, mind racing. Enough. I had enough. No more notebooks, no more secrets. I was done being an observer. The next evening, I followed him again. He told me he had to stay late at the office. I waited 10 minutes, then got into my car. He didn't go to the office. He drove straight across town to a small motel near the highway. My stomach dropped as I parked 2 rows away. Minutes later, another car pulled in. My sister stepped out. There was no mistaking it this time. No excuses, no doubts. She walked straight to his car. He opened the door, she slid inside, and the way they leaned toward each other, it shattered me. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my phone and snapped photos through the windshield, my hands shaking so badly the images came out blurry. But it didn't matter. I had seen it with my own eyes. Proof wasn't words in a notebook anymore. Proof was flesh and blood, betrayal unfolding 10 feet away. I wanted to storm over, rip open the door, drag them both into the street and scream until the whole world knew. But something stopped me. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the cold, calculating voice in my head that whispered, asterisk, not yet. Make it count. Asterisk. When I got home that night, he was already there. He sat on the couch, pretending to watch television, his face calm, his body relaxed. I stood in the doorway, staring at him, wondering how he could live such a double life and still sit there like nothing had happened. "Good day at work?" I asked softly. He glanced at me, smiling faintly. "Busy but fine. How about you?" My chest tightened. The lie slid off his tongue so easily, as natural as breathing. I wanted to throw my phone at him, show him the photos, scream until he admitted everything. But instead, I smiled. Same here. Just tired. That night, lying beside him in bed, I couldn't close my eyes. Every time he shifted in his sleep, I flinched. The warmth I once cherished now felt suffocating. My mind spun with questions. Did he ever plan to tell me? Did she? How long had they been betraying me together? And most of all, what was I going to do about it? 2 days later, my chance came. We had a family dinner planned, my parents, my sister, my husband, and me. The 4 of us sitting around the same table, pretending everything was fine. I decided to test them, to push just a little, to see if they would crack. Over roasted chicken and mashed potatoes, I turned to my sister. "So," I said casually, "what did you do Sunday night?" She froze for just a second before answering. "Stayed in, watched a movie." "Why?" My husband's fork paused halfway to his mouth, then slowly continued. "I was at the office late Sunday," he added smoothly, almost too smoothly. I leaned back in my chair, watching them both squirm. Funny, I said softly, because I could have sworn I saw you both somewhere else. Their eyes snapped to me, wide, panicked. My sister's face drained of color. My husband's jaw tightened. For a moment, no one spoke. The tension in the room was unbearable, like a string pulled too tight, ready to snap. I smiled sweetly, took a sip of wine, and changed the subject. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. My parents laughed, oblivious. My sister forced smiles. My husband kept his eyes on his plate. And I sat there, calm on the outside, burning on the inside. When everyone left and the house was quiet, my husband turned to me. His voice was low, sharp. What exactly did you mean earlier? I looked at him, my expression steady. You know exactly what I meant. He swallowed hard, his eyes darting away. You're imagining things, he muttered. I leaned in close, my voice cold. Don't insult me. I know. I've seen it. I've heard it. I have proof. His face went pale. For the first time, he looked afraid. I stood, walked to the drawer where my notebook lay hidden, and placed it on the table between us. This, I said, tapping the cover, is every lie you've told, every secret you've kept, every time you chose her over me. And sooner or later, you're going to answer for it. He stared at the notebook like it was a loaded gun. I didn't open it. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just turned and walked upstairs, leaving him alone in the kitchen with his fear. That night, as I lay in bed, my mind was clear for the first time in weeks. I wasn't just a wife betrayed. I wasn't just a sister abandoned. I was a woman with a choice. And the time to make that choice was coming soon. The morning after I left the notebook on the table, the house felt like it was holding its breath. My husband moved through the kitchen quietly, pouring coffee, rustling the paper, avoiding my eyes. Normally, he filled silence with chatter, sports scores, weather forecasts, gossip from work. But that morning, the only sounds were the scrape of his spoon and the steady tick of the clock. I sat across from him, calm on the outside, though my chest felt like it was lined with fire. Every time he shifted, I saw again the way he had looked at my sister, the way she had touched his arm, the way they both froze when I hinted at knowing. And I remembered his face the night before, white, stricken, when I told him I had proof. Finally, he cleared his throat. About last night, his voice cracked. You misunderstood. I almost laughed. The audacity of it. Instead, I tilted my head. Then enlightened me. He looked down at his mug, fingers tightening around the handle. Your sister has been going through things. She leans on me. That's all. I leaned forward, my voice low, sharp. Do children say goodnight, Daddy, to men who are just a shoulder to lean on? His eyes snapped up, wide with shock. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The silence between us was an answer all its own. He left for work soon after, mumbling excuses about deadlines. I stayed at the table, staring at the notebook. For the first time, I didn't feel weak holding it. I felt powerful. Every page was a weapon, and he knew it. That afternoon, I called my sister. Come over, I said flatly. She hesitated before agreeing. When she arrived, she smiled too brightly, her voice too high. How are you? She asked, as if nothing in the world was wrong. I led her into the living room. I think you already know, I said. I placed the notebook on the coffee table between us. Her smile faltered. What's that? My record, I replied. Every time you and my husband lied to me. Every place you thought you were safe. Every detail you tried to hide. She went pale. You don't understand. No, I cut her off. For once, you're going to understand me. Do you know what it's like to look at your sister, the person you grew up with, and realize she's been sneaking behind your back? Do you know what it feels like to watch your husband and your own blood share secrets, smiles, touches meant for me? Tears welled in her eyes. It wasn't supposed to happen. We didn't mean. Don't, I snapped. Don't you dare insult me with excuses. You made choices. Both of you. She looked down, twisting her hands together. I love him. The words came out in a whisper, but they crashed into me like thunder. I felt the air leave my lungs. My own sister, admitting she loved my husband. For a moment, I thought I might faint, but instead, something inside me solidified. Then you can have him, I said coldly. Her head jerked up, eyes wide. You don't mean that, she stammered. Oh, I do, I said, because now the only thing left for me to decide is how loud I want this story to be. Do I walk away quietly? Or do I tell everyone? Our parents, our friends, his job. Exactly who you are. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the sister I once admired. Before she could answer, the front door opened. My husband stepped inside, stopping short when he saw us. His face drained of color. "What's going on?" I stood, my voice steady. "The truth," I said. "The truth is finally on the table." He looked from me to her, panic in his eyes. She wiped her cheeks, shaking her head. "She knows," she whispered. His shoulders slumped, the fight leaving him all at once. "Please," he begged. "We can fix this." I laughed bitterly. "You want to fix a betrayal that's been rotting for months? Years? You broke me. Both of you. And now, I decide what happens next." The room went still. My sister sobbed quietly, my husband stood frozen, and I felt, for the first time in weeks, like I was in control. I picked up the notebook, held it against my chest, and turned toward the stairs. At the top, I paused and looked back. "Tomorrow," I said. "Tomorrow I make my choice. And you'd better pray you like it." I left them both standing there, broken in their own guilt, while I walked away with the power they thought I'd never find. That night, I barely slept. I lay awake staring at the ceiling while my husband tossed beside me, his breathing uneven, restless. Down the hall, the clock ticked loud and steady, each second reminding me that tomorrow had come, the day I had promised them I would decide. When morning light crept through the curtains, I rose quietly, pulled on a sweater, and went downstairs. The house smelled faintly of coffee. He was already in the kitchen, pretending life was normal. My sister's car was parked across the street. She hadn't gone home. Cowardice kept her close, afraid of what I might do. I sat at the table, my notebook in front of me. He hovered nearby, his face pale, his voice careful. "We can work through this," he said softly. "We can fix it." I looked up at him, my eyes cold. "Fix? You broke something that doesn't have glue strong enough to hold it together." He flinched, but pressed on. "It was a mistake." "No," I cut him off. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying the wrong word in an argument. Months of lies, secret meetings, a motel room, my own sister. That isn't a mistake. That's a choice. Over and over again, you chose her. And she chose you." His shoulders sagged. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, not just guilt. I heard the creak of the porch steps. My sister stepped inside, her face blotchy from crying, her hands twisting in front of her. "Please," she whispered. "Don't destroy us. Don't tell anyone." "Don't tell anyone?" I repeated, my voice shaking with anger. "You destroyed me, and now you're worried about your reputation?" She sobbed, reaching out a hand. "I love you. You're my sister. Please. Don't," I said sharply, stepping back. "You lost the right to call me that the moment you betrayed me. Sisters protect each other. You stabbed me in the back." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. My husband looked between us, desperate, broken. My sister wept quietly, and I stood tall, clutching the notebook that held every detail of their betrayal. I realized then that I had all the power. For weeks, I had felt trapped, cornered, helpless. But now, they were the ones cornered, waiting for my decision. I could walk out the door, leave them both behind, start a new life without their lies. I could expose them, tell our parents, our children, our friends, his colleagues. I could burn their lives the way they burned mine. Or I could stay silent, carry the weight, and let them live in fear of the day I finally speak. I looked at both of them, my voice steady. "You don't get to choose anymore." "I do. And whatever choice I make, you'll have to live with it." I turned, walked upstairs, and closed the bedroom door behind me. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I opened the notebook to the last blank page. My hand hovered over it, pen poised. Slowly, deliberately, I wrote, "Asterisk, this is where my story ends, or where it begins." Asterisk. I stared at the words, my heart pounding, the future wide open in front of me. For the first time, I felt strangely free. Because the truth is, I don't know yet if I will walk away, expose them, or find another way to make them pay. And maybe that's the question that matters most. If it were you, what would you do?